If the sale of Warner Brothers to Netflix actually goes through, it looks like Warner Brothers Games is going to either be gutted or left in the trash, and I can't say I feel all that bad. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, Netflix is going to get a behemoth-sized amount of franchises. It's pretty crazy to think about. We're talking Harry Potter, we're talking DC, the list goes on, and I will show it in a minute. But Warner Brothers Games has been a point of discussion for a lot of people over the past couple of days because it brings in a lot of money, though over the past few years, they have also wasted a lot of money on failed projects. And while Netflix hadn't said anything until now, apparently they just view it as a relatively minor arm in the grand scheme of things, which is crazy to think about because look at how much money Hogwarts Legacy made, how many copies that sold, look at how many copies the Arkhamverse has sold, and there's a lot of potential here. It just needs new leadership. So the article says streaming giant Netflix has said that it did not attribute any value to Warner Brothers Games business as part of its proposed acquisition of the entertainment giant. That's according to the streaming giant's co-CEO, the president and director Gregory Peters, who, as reported by PocketGamer.biz, said that Warner Brothers would be an accelerant for its own games business. While they definitely have been doing some great work in the game space, we actually didn't attribute any value to that from the get-go because they're relatively minor compared to the grand scheme of things. Now that we are super excited because some of those properties that they've built, Hogwarts is a great example of that, have been done quite well, and we think that we can incorporate that into what we're offering. So they are basically saying that Warner Brothers Games wasn't even in the back of their mind when they were truly making this deal, which is mind-boggling. I mean, Hogwarts Legacy has sold over 34 million copies, and if you count that at $60 each, that's what, over $2 billion made, even though it didn't have that large of a budget in the grand scheme of things. Look at something like the Arkhamverse. We are talking about tens of millions of copies sold, and people absolutely love the Arkhamverse, though they did a lot of damage to it with Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Suicide Squad KTJL lost them over $250 million, and if they just had made a continuation of the real Arkhamverse games, it would have easily doubled its money and then some. They could have continued a Batman story, they could have brought back a bunch of iconic characters, and they could have made bank, but no. They decided to go in the direction of modern slop, and they got what they deserved. I'm not going to shed a tear for them, and now apparently an Arkham Asylum remake is in the works. That is at least what I have been told, and I have covered it in other videos, and that sounds like it's also probably going to be some bad news. You had a Warner Brothers Games release Multiverses. That lost them well over $100 million. They've already shut that game down, and that infuriated a lot of people because they didn't refund microtransactions or anything. And then you also have to take into consideration everything else that Warner Brothers Games has, because it's not just one or two things. They do all of the Lego video games. So that means that now, of course, we have Lego titles that will probably end up be accelerated in terms of development. I bet that they're going to pump out as many of those as possible. You have NetherRealms Games, which is Mortal Kombat, and over the past couple of Mortal Kombat releases, people also haven't been the happiest. We recently got the Legacy Collection, which that isn't, NetherRealms who's developing it, but either way, it's still a collection for Mortal Kombat that reflects on them, and that didn't reflect very positively as it got raked across the coals by gamers, and it's sad to see that happen. You had Mortal Kombat 1, which also didn't sit as well with people as possible. And only a couple of months ago, Game of Thrones King's Road came out, and this was monetized extremely poorly. It had a lot of annoying mobile game mechanics. It just didn't feel like a very high quality title, and people wrecked it. 57 critic, 5.5 user, and that's not even with a lot of scores. I bet if more people had played it and more people had actually left their thoughts on sites like Metacritic, this score would have tanked even freaking lower. And it sucks because Game of Thrones should be big. The Arkhamverse should be big again. You have something like Hogwarts Legacy, which did make a lot of money, but can they actually capture that same audience with a sequel? Not if they make major changes, and if they make major changes, people are going to tune out. Now, I do know that a lot of these IP have already been either turned into video games or they've talked about it. But either way, even if, let's say, they went down this entire list and they made another Game of Thrones video game, or they made a new Scooby-Doo game, or Mad Max, Evil Dead, Hogwarts, the Arkhamverse, you still are dealing with Warner Brothers, who has been hiring activists for years. And that's the problem, is that Netflix can't gayify what's already been gayified. We are talking about them going in the direction of a strong feminist lead in Suicide Squad. We are talking about Harley Quinn laughing and making fun of men constantly and hating men. You have Greta Thunberg, Poison Ivy. You have all of these terrible decisions already being made. Now, yes, they could obviously be pumped up 100% in something like Hogwarts Legacy 2, for example, but will they do that? Who knows? Either way, though, we're still talking about Warner Brothers, who already did severe damage to their own brand. What could Netflix really make worse at this point? And it sucks to say, but it really is the truth. And this is a big list of what they could be getting their hands on and really what they could be milking for all it's worth. I mean, here are some major IPs, movies, and companies that Netflix will acquire: Friends, Oceans, Gremlins, Evil Dead, Mad Max. We could be talking about a Matrix game, a Mad Max game, Evil Dead, even Gremlins. You have things, of course, like Harry Potter, Scooby-Doo, The Conjuring. That could be maybe some kind of like really cool Resident Evil-esque type of title. Game of Thrones. You also have to look at the Monsterverse. Like, we're talking about a lot that they actually will have at their disposal, no matter who buys Warner Brothers, even if it's not necessarily Netflix. But to hear that Netflix didn't even really take Warner Brothers games into consideration is kind of mind-boggling, because Warner Brothers games has made a lot of money in the past. It's not like they've made nothing. But this right here is why they probably didn't take it too seriously. Warner Brothers games revenue plummeted 48% in Q1 of this year as fallout from Sweet Baby Inc. failures continue, Monolith closed, executives were ousted, and no new game was in sight. And really, Warner Brothers Games has put themselves into this situation. If the people that were running the show actually were listening to customers, they could easily be making billions and billions of dollars every single year, but they're not, because of their own fuck-ups, because of their own mistakes. And it's so sad to see this happen, because again, yes, we have gotten some absolutely phenomenal games in the past from Warner Brothers Games, and I do want the Rocksteadies to be successful. I do want them to continue to make games with some of my favorite characters. Like a really good high quality Wonder Woman game could have been cool, and we also now know that we could potentially be seeing a Nemesis system game in the future. But at the same time, we also don't know if that will truly happen. It is one potential outcome, but if they didn't even really take this division or arm seriously when purchasing or thinking of purchasing Warner Brothers, that probably means that it's going to just be left to rot, and that they aren't actually going to make it a priority to do anything with anytime soon. So that's really fascinating to me. Of course, I will be following this situation pretty closely, but apparently Netflix is saying Warner Brothers Games arm is minor in the grand scheme of things, and they believe that it will help accelerate their own interactive entertainment business. And at this point, I can't really say that I'm going to be heartbroken, as it's been years since we've gotten high quality content from them anyway. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.